So today we're going over two key things. The first thing we're going to talk about is our mindsets. We're going to talk about the growth mindset, the fixed mindset, and by the end of this talk, this is what you are supposed to gain. If you do stay focused, you are tuned in, and hopefully you do write some notes, you're going to gain much more. So I do recommend you do have something to write some notes next to you. But this Instagram live will be recorded, so you will have access to it in the future, God willing. By the end of this course, this is what you are going to come out with. Number one, you will have a deeper understanding of what is a mindset, what is a fixed mindset, what is a growth mindset, how to transition from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset. You are going to have a newfound understanding of how the mind works and how we process information. You're going to understand why people do what they do, and you are going to be provided with an effective tool which will help you in communication, whether it's communicating with yourself, whether it's communicating with other people, whether it's at work, whether it's at school, wherever it is. And that is a fundamental principle that we have learned in AYM. But before I get into the workshop, I want to tell you a bit about myself. For those that don't know, my name is Mohammed Dahini. I'm 28 years old, born and raised Sydney, Australia, and I've had the privilege and honor of studying overseas in the seminary for 7 years. And also I have delved very deep into the world of personal development, neuroscience, psychology, and I've created a unique framework for personal development, which is a bit different to the traditional personal development route, because I feel like a lot of the stuff that we see today in the self-help books or the self-help industry in general, it lacks certain key aspects, like for example, the heart's role in personal development and the soul's role in personal development. With that being said, today's discussion is not about the heart, it's not about the soul, it's not about spirituality, it's not about faith. Today, I want to go deeper into the mind, into a very important function and an important part of our mechanism and our being that is often underlooked because we're not equipped with the resources. And you know, as a practitioner of NLP and as my experience in life coaching, these tools that I'm going to share with you have had a profound impact on me personally and in my journey, and also with hundreds and hundreds of people that I've worked with in a coaching capacity, or my students at school when I was working at a private school, or even with groups and community groups. So hopefully you allow me to be your guide in this journey, for the next 45 minutes to an hour, depending on how long we go, and you're able to utilize these tools effectively. So let's get straight into part one of today's workshop, and that is we are going to introduce the mindsets, the fixed mindset, the growth mindset, and how to transition from one to the other. Now, firstly, I'd like to give a shout out to my wife. Thank you to my wife for making this nice and neat. If I wrote this, you probably would have tuned out a long time ago. So thank you, Zainab, for that. So firstly, when we say mindset, what are we talking about? We are talking about the underlying values and beliefs that you have about a particular thing. A lot of our beliefs and our values are composed subconsciously. Your family dynamic might shed certain light on certain values and beliefs that become ingrained within you, and you start to believe it, and you take it as as a verse, as they say, as an ayah. And so you haven't really chosen the mindset in a sense. So it's the underlying beliefs that you have. A person with a fixed mindset is someone that believes that their abilities and their intelligence are static. They believe that their talents and their intelligence is limited and they're set in stone. I was born smart or I was not. I was born good at maths. I was born creative. I was born, talented in sport, or I wasn't. And so that it starts to filter into their behavior. And they say, no, I'm not good at public speaking. That's the way I am. A person with a fixed mindset, you start to avoid challenges that allows them to give up easily, or you start to feel threatened by the success of other people. But on the other hand, a person with a growth mindset is someone that believes that our abilities, our intelligence, our capabilities can be developed, and they can be developed through effort, through repetition, through learning, through perseverance. And therefore, a person with a growth mindset might see as a challenge, as an opportunity to learn. Understanding the two different mindsets is crucial. The fixed mindset is someone that believes that their abilities and intelligence are static, avoid challenges, they give up easily, and they're threatened by another person's success. Whereas the growth mindset is the complete opposite. They believe that your abilities and intelligence can be developed, you embrace your challenges, persist in the face of setbacks and pain and trials, and you're inspired by others' success. So real quickly, just ask yourself a question. Where do you think you lie on this spectrum? Now, to help you understand or observe this mindset within yourself or within other people, there are two key ways that you can figure out whether you have a fixed mindset, you have a fixed or growth mindset. The first way is our internal dialogue. Now, the internal dialogue, some people think that you might be crazy if you talk to yourself. Well, no, you're not crazy if you talk to yourself. We all talk to ourselves. Some people admit it, some people don't. Some people talk to themselves so much that they start speaking out loud. That's where people start to get a bit sketchy. But your internal dialogue plays a huge role in determining what type of mindset you have. If you are someone that has destructive self-talk, if you are someone that you're often thinking, I can't do this, I'm not good at this, this is too hard, I'm gonna fail, people are gonna laugh at me, then you're probably operating from a fixed mindset. And when you start to see this internal dialogue, and it's in a sense destructive in a way, then you could start to see why you are not doing certain things. It's not because you're not good at it. It's if you're thinking that and you're believing that in your mindset, your underlying beliefs are, I am not going to succeed or I am not good, then you're most probably right. Not because it's true, but because that's what you believe and that's what you think. So the internal dialogue is important. And you can see this if you're speaking to someone, if they're always playing the victim card. Everyone's wrong and I'm right. Oh, everyone's wronging me. And the whole world, like I'm late to work because there was traffic. Every single day there was traffic. It's not because I didn't wake up early. It's not because I didn't sleep early and try to beat the traffic. No, it's just always the traffic or always making excuses. And you can see that, and that is a representation of a fixed mindset. The second way to know whether you have what type of mindset you have is your reactions to challenges. So we said in internal dialogue, if you have a growth mindset, you'd be like, I can learn this, I can learn how to do this. With practice, I'll get better. But when you want to observe your mindset and notice how and see it within yourself from internal dialogue, look and observe the way you react to challenges. How do you react to a challenge? When something comes your way, are you afraid of failing? Do you feel like that you're not cut out for this? Or are you someone that looks at the challenge and embraces this challenge? So most of this information is from a book called The Growth Mindset by Dr. Carol Dweck. And she mentions in the beginning of the book how she discovered these mindsets is they'd done an experiment with children, and she'd give them a puzzle. She'd give a group a puzzle, an easy puzzle, and some of the children will come and they'd solve it very quickly. Then she'd give them two other options. She'd give them a hard puzzle. Some of the kids would come and say, the other one was too easy, I want to do the hard one. Some could crack it, some couldn't. Some children that couldn't crack the hard puzzle, they gave them another option. Do you want to do an easy puzzle or do you want to try again the hard one? They said, we want to do the easy one. Whereas some other children said, no, we want the hard one. She realized that the difference was some of these children were afraid of tapping into the struggle of the puzzle, whereas some were leaning into the struggle of the puzzle. And that's sort of, you could see the difference. Look at it in yourself. When you have a tough circumstance or something tough happening in your life, a challenge, a trial, or tribulation, how do you react to it? Your reaction plays a big role in what type of mindset that you have. So take a moment and I want you to write down, reflect on an experience of yours, write down a challenge that you've recently faced and ask yourself, how did you react? What was this internal dialogue? How did you react to the situation? And become aware of the pattern of thought and the pattern of behavior when a challenge arises. So that is how to observe our mindsets. Through our internal dialogue, a person with a fixed mindset says, I can't do this. A person with a growth mindset says, I can learn how to do this. And the way we react to challenges. So the person with a fixed mindset avoids challenges. A person with a growth mindset embraces challenges. Let's go to the next part. And this is now, how do we transition from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset? Well, the first thing we want to do is we want to start by reframing our thoughts. See, you might think that this is a very simple fix, and it is a very simple fix, but it's a real fix. Just by changing the thought pattern. What if I don't deliver? What if people come and I feel like they've wasted their time? And I was thinking about this, and then I changed my thought pattern. I said, hold on a second. I know I'm sincere. I'm going to try my best. I've got a lot of amazing things prepared. I'm going to deliver it to the best of my capabilities. And if it's not met well, I'll learn. What did I do wrong? What could I do better? And instantly I felt at ease just by changing the thought pattern. So reframing your thoughts plays a big role. From I'm not good at this to I'm not good at this yet. Just by adding the word yet, you can change the whole meaning of the situation. Because if you say I'm not good at this yet, then what do I have to do to be good at it? That's the other question that comes up. If you say, I'm not good at this, you say, because I'm a failure. So reframing thoughts, the first step. The second part is you want to embrace challenge. When you lean into pain, you can start to view them as an opportunity for growth. Even in the Holy Quran, God says that surely with hardship comes ease. With challenge comes ease. So when you're in a challenge, a good thought to reframe is, with hardship comes ease. And then you look and dig deep into this hardship and try and see, what is God trying to teach me? What am I supposed to learn from this? How should I behave moving forward? And then that's the second. The third is we want to learn from criticism. A lot of people, and I used to do this myself, I used to take criticism personally. But no one benefits if you take something personally. If you don't benefit if you take a criticism personally, and the other person doesn't. If someone criticizes you in any way, your best bet is to look at it objectively and say, are they right? Are they not right? If they're not right, then it doesn't really impact me. It doesn't, my self-worth isn't impacted or determined by what other person says. If they are right, then how should I improve on it? Use it as a constructive feedback mechanism. And the fourth is to celebrate effort. Dr. Andrew Huberman says this a lot, especially when he's talking about dopamine neural pathways. He says, you want to fall in love with the process. Don't just fall in love with the goal. You want to celebrate the pain and the hardship that comes with achieving the goal that you have. If you can tie your celebration to the effort rather than the result, then anything you embark on, you'll be good, you'll be sweet. Because in your mind, you know that you can't lose. Because with pain, with hardship, comes ease. So, to solidify these strategies, let's do a quick activity. I want you to think about a specific area in your life that you feel stuck or you're limited or you're not doing too well in. And I want you to write down, be honest, I want you to write down what is a fixed mindset thought that you have about this, a limiting thought that you have about it. Then right under that, I want you to reframe that thought into a growth mindset statement. For example, if you go from, I'm terrible at public speaking, you can go to, I can improve my public speaking with a bit of practice and with a bit of feedback. I can improve, I'll get there. I just have to expose myself to it. I'm going to give you guys a moment, 10, 15 seconds, 30 seconds. Write this down. Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments on this video and let me know what you guys think. And then we'll jump into part 2. Now we are going deep into one of my favorite models that I have studied. When we first started studying NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, one of the first things they taught us was the NLP communication model. Now, for those that don't know, NLP was originally conceived and developed by two men, John Grinder and Richard Brandler. And neuro-linguistic programming began as a model of how we can communicate and interact with ourselves and with other people. How to understand the system of the mind and the body and their role in communication. And how to essentially reprogram the nervous system and reprogram the way we see the world. So, one fundamental predisposition or a law or a rule of NLP, and anyone that studies NLP, is that the map is not the territory. meaning the internal representation, the image that we create. Part two, the NLP communication model. The underlying factor of NLP and premise that we believe in is that the map is not the territory, meaning that the internal representation and the image that you have of the outside world doesn't represent the actual event itself. Like for example, you can go to a wedding and your friend can go to the same wedding and you can come back out with two different experiences. You can go to a party, you can go to wherever. So the last words were part two. In NLP, we have one of the fundamental rules or predispositions that we believe in is that the map is not the territory, meaning the image and the image that you have of the outside world does not represent the actual event. So for example, if you were to go with your friend to a party or to a wedding, each person comes back with a whole different experience. Your experience of the event doesn't represent the actual event itself. So if I was to give an example, if I was to put a map in front of us right now, and I was to describe my village in Lebanon, you would maybe be able to create an image of the place, but until you go to my village, until you go and see the mountain, until you go and smell and feel the fresh air and hear the birds, you won't actually experience my village to its truest experience. So what happens and why is it that people have different perceptions? Why is it that people can go to the same place and come back out with different experiences, and eat the same food and have different experiences with it? So this is the NLP communication model, and it answers, if we were to look at and we were to deconstruct how our mind processes information, this is the structure of it. An external event happens. Let's call that X. When something happens outside of you, then you have your external senses, or the sensory input channels, as they say, external filters, that digest this information. You can acquire information through seeing, so through visual, through auditory, through feeling. You could acquire information through tasting, through smelling. The senses, they input information. There's millions and millions and millions of bits of information entering your mind at the exact same time, every moment. So the question is, your mind and your brain needs to filter this information because it's too much to constantly be taking everything into the mind. So it filters this information. Most of us have our senses and we all have these filters. The filter of deletion, the filter of distortion, and the filter of generalization. And I'm going to explain everything that I've mentioned so far in much more detail. I'm just giving you a bird's eye view of what we're talking about. So this information comes in through our senses and then it's filtered. Now you might say, all right, if we have all the same filters, then how can we see things differently? Why do we interpret the world differently? Well, the reason is because this filtration process happens according to certain filters. Let's go deeper into this. Your deletion, your distortion, and your generalization happens according to the laws by which your filter, remember how we're talking about mindset? Your mindset might be different to my mindset. So your mindset might impact your filters different to my mindset. We'll explain that more in a moment. But the first thing I want you to understand is that information is processed. There's millions and millions of bits of information, and only a bit of that information actually enters and is processed. And that information is filtered by these three filters. Once it passes these filters, then what happens? You have now an internal representation. An internal representation is the image, our filters, I should say, are, so the filters upon which the deletion, generalization, and distortion. What makes me and you different is this. We all have the same filters. So you might have different beliefs to me. You might have different values to me. We definitely have different memories, and we definitely have different experiences. Every person's filters is going to be different. You will never have the same filter as someone else because your beliefs, your values, your memories, and your experiences have to be at some level unique to you, even if you were twins living in the same home. If you were twins living in the same home, one of you might have had a different upbringing because you might have had different friends. You might have been treated differently by different people. So your experiences might be different. Your memories might be different. Even though you might have very similar beliefs and values. So our filters play a big role. So if you've got the external event, X happens, I taste a particular food, I see a particular event, and then that information, let's say for example, you see someone littering on the road. You observe it, the information goes into your mind. Then it's processed. What do you believe about someone throwing on the floor? You think, you know what? Cleanliness is from faith. You must be a clean person. And that, even if there's no one that's going to find me and there's no one observing me throwing right now and littering, God is observing. So you believe God sees you. One of your values is that you want to always take care of nature. So now that you see this event, you're going to be stopped and you'll be like, hold on a second, why is this person throwing rubbish on the floor? Because the way your mind processes that information is according to your beliefs and your values. But if you don't care about nature and you don't care about someone littering, then you might not even look twice at that event. So that's just a quick example. So once that belief and that filters happens and the filtration happens, now we have the internal representation. So you've got X, which is someone littering, then you've got your internal representation of X. Or, for example, let's say you're someone that had a traumatic experience when you were growing up, when you wanted to give a public speech. Everyone was laughing at you and you got embarrassed, all right? So now, anytime you think about public speaking, your experiences come up, your memories come up, and your negative and destructive beliefs come up, and you say, what? You have an internal representation. This is going to cause me pain. This is going to be a very distressful event. And so therefore, you start to feel nervous. So the internal representation or the image or the feeling or the picture that you have of what's happening outside of you then is processed by your body. And you can start to see it. Because now you wanted to give that public speech and you were afraid, you started to feel a bit anxious. You started to feel a bit nervous, and you started to see that it starts to impact your body. Your posture changes, your breathing changes, your confidence changes, the way you use your body, your shoulders, everything changes. Now, what happens when your body changes? What happens when your physiology changes? Then you have a new behavior. So this is how it looks like. You've got X happens, it goes through VACOG, which is the five senses. Then the five senses, then it's filtered, and then after it's filtered, it goes to your physiology, and it impacts your body. After it impacts your body, then you have an emotional state. So now you're feeling something, emotional state. And then after you have an emotional state, now you're feeling nervous, now you're feeling anxious, now you're feeling scared. That produces a behavior. So now that's why you might be afraid of going and giving a public speech, right? It's not because really you're not good at speaking. It's because all of the stuff that happened before that. So deletion. What is deletion? The process of the filter process. Our filters are these, and this is what we all differ with. But the actual filtering process is what we all have in common. Our filter process, we have deletion, distortion, and then we have generalization. By the way, I'm going to provide you guys a PDF which summarizes everything I've spoken about today. So, I don't want you to be too afraid of all of the technical stuff. You have access to all of that, God willing. We'll speak about that soon. But anyway, so you've got deletion, distortion, generalization. When this information comes in, the first thing that happens is you selectively pay attention to certain things of your experience and you overlook others, the things that are important. And without deletion, if you didn't delete information, then your mind will be overwhelmed with too much information. Like think about a time where you were in a 3-hour lecture. By the end of it, you had so much information because your mind couldn't delete all of that. Your mind needed a lot of that information. But when I come and ask you after the lecture, what did you learn? You won't tell me everything. You delete the parts that aren't important and you give me the parts that are important. Then you have distortion. Distortion is when you change and you manipulate or you misrepresent what's actually happening outside of you. It's like, for example, when you see someone walking from far away and you think they look like someone that you know. It's like, bro, I swear you look like this person. Or you're in the bushes, you're at a camp and you see a rope on the floor and you think it's a snake. right? Your mind distorts this information. And distortion, it can be positive and it can be negative, but you have to be in control of it. You have to be aware of when are you distorting and when are you not distorting. And this is a big part of reframing and changing the way you see things. Like, for example, when I was thinking about the workshop today and I was getting a bit nervous and so on, that was a distorted way of seeing things. I was looking at things from the negative point of view. So I re-distorted it and I looked at what do I actually want to take from this experience. Then we have generalization. Generalization is our mind's ability to draw broad conclusions based on 1, 2, 3 examples. And this is very important as well, right? Because if you had to repeat, always have to experience something constantly for you to be able to know it. Like, think about, waking up in the morning, right? You know where everything is in your house. You know your morning routine and it's very seamless. If you had to every day in the morning remember where everything is in your house and try and remember all of the different parts of your system and your routine, then it's just going to take much more time. So habits and routines and all of that can fall under the filtration process of generalization. But also it has a negative side effect as well, because that's where people might have one negative experience with a person or with a restaurant or with whatever it is, and they'll generalize. Like, you went and you ate at an Indian restaurant once, you didn't like the food, I don't like Indian food. Or you met a particular person from a different nationality. I'll tell you personally, recently I was in Europe with my wife, and there's a particular country that we went to where we had a few encounters with a few people, and we just made this broad conclusion that the people in this place are, they're not nice. Then we thought about it, like, but why? We only met a few people. Like, how can we make that generalization? So that is the third filter. Now you see, you have deletion, I have deletion. You have distortion, I have distortion. You have generalization, and I do too. But what does my mind distort? What does my mind delete? That's based on the filters that we mentioned earlier. Your mind deletes, distorts, and generalizes based on your filters. And that's where we differ. And you can change the process by changing your filter. What happens after we've created this internal representation? We said you have now an impact on your physiology and your emotional state. Because once you're feeling in a certain way, once you're feeling, for example, if I told you right now there is a depressed person behind this curtain, and I told you, I want you to, tell me how this person's posture is, what this person's breathing is, what is this person's facial expressions. You could almost certainly, without seeing the person, know the answer to each one. His posture's probably down. He's probably breathing very shallow, very upset, thinking negative thoughts. Very negative facial expression. Right? But you didn't even see the person. All you had to know was their emotional state. Once you knew their emotional state, you knew how they were behaving. You knew what was happening. So now that you're aware, you understand that people see things differently. People observe the world differently because their filters are different. See, you are now, as an adult, you're in control of what you believe. You're in control of your values. You're in control of your thoughts. You weren't in control of many of your experiences. And that resulted in certain memories, right? But now you're in control of what the memory means to you. So you've heard the story of the two men that were sons of an alcoholic father. One of them became an alcoholic and one of them became a very successful businessman. And they asked both of them, what made you successful? What made you the person you are today? The person that's an alcoholic said, my father, he made me the way I am. And the person that became successful said, my father. They both had the same reason to their downfall or their success was the father. But the meaning was different. And you have the choice to create that meaning. That's completely up to you. So now we know and we understand how our processes and how we filter information impacts our physiology and our body, and then how that physiology impacts our emotional state, and then how that emotional state impacts our behavior. Before we conclude with another NLP tool, I want you to now just really observe this and think about it, right? If my behavior is shaped by my state, and my emotional state is shaped by my physical reaction to how I perceived an event, then I can change my state by changing my behavior. I can also change my behavior by changing how I view things. This is why you start to see the connection between the mind, the body, and behavior. Because ultimately, you are not your mind, and you are not your body, and you're not anything. You're your soul. You're the one that operates this whole mechanism. So you can choose to look at an event in a positive light. You could choose to look at an event with a fixed mindset, and you could choose to look at it with a growth mindset. A person who looks at things with a growth mindset has taken more power and control over their filters. I want to conclude with a practical method for understanding other people as well. We tend to have this narrow way of looking at things, right? When you're having a certain issue with someone, for example, or a situation, you look at things from your perspective, and you're drowned into your emotions. You're drowned into your thought patterns, right? So this tool that I'm going to share with you is a practical method. It's called perceptual positions. It's an NLP tool. You want to firstly look at the situation from your perspective. So observe, like let's say you had an argument with someone, and you want to sit down and you look at and you say, all right, how do I feel about this situation? Without bias, just genuinely look at what are you thinking and what are you feeling about this person or about this situation that you're in. Put another chair. So you're sitting down, put another chair next to you, an empty chair. Then I want you to sit in the next chair. Sit in the other chair, and I want you to look and speak from the other person's perspective. So now, put yourself in the other person's shoes and ask, how do you think they perceive the situation? Without your emotions, without your thoughts. Genuinely try and see things from their perspective. What were their thoughts? What were their filters? What were their behavior? What were they going through, right? What were their intentions? Did they mean to hurt me? Did they mean to upset me? Then you put another chair, and in the third position, you want to look through a natural observer's perspective. If a third person that is not me or this person that I'm arguing with or whatever was to observe this, what would they have seen? And this is a detached, non-biased viewpoint. Once you're able to see the three different viewpoints, then you could start to see that what's actually happening does not represent the territory. The map does not represent the territory. The meaning does not, because rarely would someone genuinely, and of course, depending on the situation, depending on the person, depending on the circumstance, this is all contextual, but a lot of the time when we take things personally, it could be easily alleviated and removed simply by just putting yourself in the other person's perspective and realizing, oh, they didn't really mean to upset me, or maybe they misunderstood what I was saying. Or, for example, you're driving on the road and someone beeps at you. Does that mean they're swearing at you? Or does that mean maybe, just maybe they're in a rush? Maybe they need to go to the bathroom. Maybe they're on the way to the hospital. Maybe there's something going on. Maybe that's not right. Maybe they are just trying to swear at you. But it does not make it better for you if you internalize it that way. It doesn't make it better for you if you take it personally. If this person is swearing at you because you're driving in the lane and they want to get through, then it's a him problem or a her problem, not a you problem. It shouldn't down your state and your emotion because it's their problem and not your problem. So by being able to suck yourself out and see the different perspectives, you are in a much better place to understand things for how they really are. I know I've thrown a lot of information at you, and I really appreciate your time and your patience. Before we wrap it up with the Q&A, I just want to go over real quickly what we spoke about today. So we began by discussing the fixed mindset and the growth mindset, and how your language, the way you use your language, the way you use your meaning and your body plays a big role in the mindset that you have. We spoke about how to observe the mindsets through internal dialogue, I'll just go through each one. We went through the fixed mindset, we went through the growth mindset, and then we went through how to observe our mindsets through internal dialogue, through our reactions to change, Then we finished our observation of the mindsets, and now we transitioned from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset with the 4 techniques that we shared: reframing your thoughts, embracing your challenges, learning from criticism, and celebrating effort. And then we went through the communication model and started to learn and see how people perceive the world, and how sometimes a person's perception is based off a negative filter. Someone has negative beliefs, destructive beliefs, hasn't been taught proper values, then ultimately what's going to happen is it's going to filter into their behavior. Mind you, just as a side note, I was meant to mention this earlier, Islam and religion, the religion of Islam, is all about cultivating a growth mindset. It's all about developing strong beliefs and strong values that allow you to operate in this world in the most effective manner. The idea of believing in justice, inna ma'al usri yusra, with hardship comes ease. That you're ultimately going to be recompensated for every good that you do and for every bad that you do. This is all part of developing and shaping a growth mindset. We spoke about our internal representation and how we create an image of the outside world. It's not actually the outside world that's inside of us. We spoke about the impact of that internal representation on our body, and then I just scribbled a bit, and we spoke about the different filters, the deletion, distortion, generalization, and then we concluded with the perceptual positions. I hope you found this valuable. I know there was a lot of information. There we go. Now I can see you guys again. Does anyone have any questions before we wrap up this workshop? Any questions that are related to this conversation that we had, or anything like it? Are you guys still there? How to get yourself out from a negative mindset besides positive affirmations? So firstly, it's about recognizing your mindset. Before we go to negative mindset and positive mindset, let's look at it as fixed mindset and growth mindset. Because a lot of us transition into a fixed mindset. Even a person with a growth mindset might have times where they operate under a fixed mindset. So it's not to say that you're always going to have the growth mindset, but you want to cultivate the growth mindset. So the first thing is you want to understand, what is it that your mindset is fixed on? What are the beliefs? What are the values? What are the beliefs, the filters and values that are holding you back, that are making you feel negative, or to see things in a negative light? The second thing is you want to start changing. As we said, the transition from negative mindset to positive mindset, there's a lot of reframing. You want to change the way you see things. You want to change the way you see the world, or change the language even. This is very powerful. Change the language that you use to describe events. Another way, as we mentioned earlier, is changing the way you look at challenge. Challenges and hardship is there to help you grow and to alleviate yourself and to help you elevate yourself. And taking 1% move. Like, you're not supposed to be perfect instantly. You're not supposed to perfect everything, and become the most positive person in the world overnight. But you want to start, looking at yourself and saying, when do I have negative thoughts? When do I label things in a negative way? What am I trying to achieve from it? And how can I label it in a way that's more positive and empowering for me versus in a way that's destructive? So one way I've found is writing, journaling down, writing down, what are the negative thoughts that you're having towards a particular thing, and asking yourself, how are these thoughts serving you? And if they're not serving you, asking yourself, what are thoughts that I can replace with these thoughts, or what are beliefs that I can replace with these beliefs that can serve me and will serve me? And then recondition those beliefs. Affirmation comes then. When you've got and you have and compose a powerful constructive belief, and you constantly remind yourself of that belief. Because what happens, if you were to go back to the NLP communication model, what happens is when you're constantly repeating to yourself that positive, that, as you said, affirmation, or that positive belief, or that positive frame, the growth mindset thought, you start to impact your state, your emotional state. You start to impact your physiology. And then you start to impact also your mindset. you start to impact the filters, you start to impact the filtration process, and you reverse engineer everything. So sometimes it is as simple as changing the way you see things. Sometimes it is as simple as changing the words you use to label things. Sometimes it's as simple as, how you use your body. There's a story of Imam Ali alayhi salam, as you're aware of, when he was fighting Amr ibn Wad al-Amiri, and in that final battle, and he was about to end the battle, and the guy spit in the face of Imam Ali alayhi salam. What did he do? He stood up and he walked away, took a few deep breaths, and then he came back. And then he executed the guy. And when they asked him, why'd you do that? Why'd you walk away? What did he say? He said, I walked away because the anger that arose in that moment, so the emotional state that arose in that moment was anger. So what I did was I used my behavior differently. By using my behavior differently, his emotional state changed, he calmed down his anger, and he transitioned his anger from personal anger, so he's no longer angry personally because the guy spit in his face, and he switched the anger to anger for God. And that anger is justified, that's accepted, that anger, right? Like what's happening in Palestine today and Gaza, the whole world's angry. If the world didn't get angry, then no one would do anything. He used his body, he moved, recreated the emotional state, and then he came back. And so you can use your body and your physiology and the words that you use and your focus and your attention to create an emotional state. And this is what Tony Robbins calls the triad. That's one way of transitioning from fixed mindset to growth mindset. Do you have any other questions? Thank you very much. I hope you guys really enjoyed this, and I hope that we delivered the promise that we had given to you guys. And inshallah, if you did find this valuable, feel free to let me know what you found valuable in it, and hopefully moving forward we can do more events like this and we can see you more often. Thank you very much, my friends.